us on The Explainer. I'm seeing many of your questions regarding the Hustler Fund, and the Cabinet Secretary Simon Chelugui is here to answer all your questions and, of course, speak to the operations of this fund since 18 months ago when it was first launched. Thank you for continuing to stay with us. I'd like to get into the statement that came out from you today, where you talk about the disbursements to date from this fund amounting to 54.5 billion?
Yes.
Okay. Out of this, how much has been repaid?
Approximately 42 billion shillings, 521 million, has been repaid.
And that would be a repayment rate of?
If you, as a percentage, that should be approximately almost 70%. So
that translates to a 30% loss rate, or non-performing loan rate, if you like.
Yes, you could call it non-performing, but okay, these are term loans, so you can't fix a period or a time that this loan should have been paid, because on a daily basis we lend and recover, so it's always changing.
Well, loan repayment rates are known because all loans are term rates, right?
Yes.
Yeah, all loans are fixed for a particular time.
Yeah.
If you said that the idea of the Hustler Fund was to sort out the inequalities or inadequacies in the formal financial system, why is the repayment rate, why is the non-performing rate so high compared to others in the competition? For instance, if you check data based on CRB, for instance, for others that you said were predatory lending and people were not able to pay back as much, for those others in the private sector that are competing with you, their non-performing rate is less than 1%. Yet that of Hustler Fund is at 30%. Does that not say something about
recoverability?
Exactly.
Thank you, Yvonne. First, let me. Is the reason behind establishment of the Hustler Fund? One, I know we must focus on sustainability of the fund to ensure that the fund can serve the next Kenyan, even tomorrow. But we should not lose out also on the original intention of rehabilitating. When we came on...
Sorry, I just want us to go step by step. We'll come back and talk about the function of rehabilitating people's credit scores.
Yes.
But I'd just like us to talk about the repayment. Of this issue, considering that you are far less with interest rates at 8% than the market rate.
Correct.
And yet your non-performing loss ratio is at 30% compared to your competitors, which is at less than 1%. Why is it, Waziri, that people are able to pay back the loans that you say are more expensive and not paying back the loans that you are providing that you claim are cheaper?
There's only one reason. This is a term loan and theirs are overdrafts. So immediately they pick or they borrow this digital money, their loan or their M-Pesa or their digital balance goes negative. And as soon as they receive any money into their wallets, that recovery happens instantly.
Well, doesn't that say something about the way they're able to recover, as opposed to yours, where, in fact, at some point you say, there are no penalties towards non-payment?
And that's why I started by telling you, Yvonne, that we are, as a government, we are carrying out rehabilitation and also intervening on a market failure. We are intervening in a situation that has gone rogue. If you listen to some of those borrowers who are going through other digital companies, they have borrowed through other digital companies, they're really having challenges. They have problems.
Well, they've
suffered.
They seem to have bigger challenges.
They have bigger challenges.
With Hustler Fund,
and
considering you're at 30%.
Yes,
and the others are at less than 1%. And so what is the challenge with the Hustler Fund in terms of repayment?
What is that?
The challenge with repayment. Why are your non-repayment
why is your
recovery rate so low?
Our recovery measures and actions are modest relative to what these other digital lenders are doing. And as I told you, we are also dealing with issues of collateral. Majority of those digital borrowers had been blacklisted 2 years ago. We've been able to rehabilitate about approximately 8 million of them into through the Hustler Fund. So I want to believe that other than just sustaining the fund, we also have a duty and responsibility to bring these 8 million Kenyans on board. Imagine an economy where 8 million of us are out, closed out. They cannot participate.
Waziri, the reason I am sticking on the issue of the repayment rate and why that is not as high is because of exactly what you speak about. One, the sustainability of this. Because when you take a look at this, this is taxpayers' money.
Correct.
And so you are accountable to the taxpayers of Kenya.
Correct.
Unlike those who are in the private sector, for instance. And so when you say the repayment terms are more modest, are you not creating an idea that borrowing and repaying is not necessarily some things that go together?
No, you know, majority of these fellows, remember we have 22 million Kenyans on board. Some of them have never had any financial, they've never had accounts, they've never seen the walls of any bank. They did not have any financial relationship with any lender.
Even the digital ones? I thought you said you were here to rehabilitate those who are on digital.
We have 8 million who are on their platforms, but we have 22 million Kenyans who have joined the Hustler Fund because of the relaxed eligibility requirements and the recovery measures. The punitive actions by others are a bit relaxed. However, that does not mean that we are not keen on recovering the money. These are taxpayers' money, and that's why, one, we are joining the e-Citizen. Government has directed that all government agencies join the e-Citizen. Again, here we will be looking at all government services as one, and through this, we'll also improve access and efficiency, and partly we might address the issue of recovery. We also have the issue of credit guarantee scheme, which is a graduation program. And we are coming up together with the National Treasury. We were discussing with the Treasury CS today to now graduate some of the good paying or good performing hustlers to this scheme. So again, that becomes an incentive. So we want to use positive sanctions as opposed to negative sanctions to promote repayment.
Let's get into that sanction space and start off with you know, what you've talked about as one of the key aims of the Hustler Fund being to rehabilitate and repair the credit status of those Kenyans. How exactly have you rehabilitated their credit status? Please explain that to us.
For example, when we started the Hustler Fund, we opened up to any Kenyan who had an ID and a list and registered SIM card. And we opened up without considering or looking at previous credit history. And when they joined, progressively we build up their credit score. And over time, they've been able to pay back their other digital loans. And today, they stand tall and have been consistent in terms of borrowing and paying. What we are witnessing here is not a default, but delayed payments. You know, we have had two products. We have the group loan and we have the personal loan. The personal loan is 14 days. We have also products that are going longer. Our intention ultimately is to have about 4 products. One is the personal loan, which has been rolled out. We have the SME loan, we have the group loan, and then we will have the startup loan. So in the process, we'll be able to give a cocktail of financial support to these hustlers. We have hustlers also who have saved using this product up to over 600,000.
Okay, and again, we will get to the savings because I want us to deal with this, with each issue, you know, exhaustively. So when you say you've rehabilitated them, and in fact, in your statement that you can now demonstrate a high credit rating to the mainstream financial market, how did you come up with this rating of these 2 million hustlers that you say you have rehabilitated?
These 2 million Kenyans have been consistently coming to us borrowing. Some have borrowed up to over 10 times and paid on time. And progressively, we have been able to generate a good financial statement that can be can be transferred to any financial institution.
Okay, so let me ask you this, because that rating is supposed to be used by banks. What happens to CRB? It would seem, Bwana Waziri, you were saying Hustler Fund is now a credit reference bureau that then provides credit ratings for them to use with other institutions?
First, as I told you, majority of these fellows were they did not have any bank accounts. They did not have any financial...
How many of them?
If you count the entire digital space before and now, we've been able to capture almost everybody. 22 million is virtually the entire adult population of Kenya, 18 and above, on average, about almost everybody.
So these are all the people that you are saying had no financial records whatsoever, had never borrowed from any digital lender? I just want to understand the numbers.
The ones that who had problems were about 8 million. But those who have joined are 22 million. Out of 22 million, 18 million have borrowed.
So let me understand this. Are you now saying the Hustler Fund is becoming a credit reference bureau that provides a credit rating that people can use with other institutions?
Currently, we are developing that, and we believe by...
Under what law, Waziri?
We are developing...
the Banking Act that has designated Credit Reference Bureau, of which there are only 3 registered in the country today.
Correct.
Why would a bank take a document that is not from a legally registered CRB and take that of the Hustler Fund?
When you talk of a credit score, is an assessment that Yvonne or myself, Simon, is of good credit standing, can pay his water bills and therefore can be given services, can be a tenant, because based on how he has conducted himself with the Hustler Fund, a fund without security, she or he has been able to borrow and repay. Based on that statement, you and me can now consider that person as a person of integrity.
Bwana CS, a credit reference report or a credit score is given by a legally registered credit reference bureau, which not only takes a look at the performance of the individual with one entity, but will take a look at it across the board. We'll sort of give a global picture. So we'll take a look at if you have borrowed from a digital lender, from a microfinance institution, from a SACCO, from Hustler Fund, and from all of these that are available, because you can easily borrow very well from Hustler Fund, but then be very notorious with a bank. You can borrow from a bank, pay well, and be very notorious with a digital lender. You can, in fact, borrow from one bank, be good with them, go borrow from another bank,
and be bad.
Which is why the Credit Reference Bureau are here to give a global picture. Now, you are saying that you are changing legislation to enable Hustler Fund provide a credit reference, but that's only for one institution.
Now, Credit Reference Bureau benefits from licensed, registered financial institutions, people who have already built or joint financial institutions. They have accessed credit, and based on their relationship with those banks, they develop credit scoring, and that report is given to the 3 licensed Credit Reference Bureau. However,
of which Hustler Fund is not.
However, Hustler Fund is supposed to deal with people who have never had any accounts. How else can you upgrade and bring up a fellow in the village and begin to develop a statement for him to be able to join, to be mainstream in the financial system? We're talking about financial inclusion. We're talking about financial literacy. We're talking about training and onboarding all Kenyans into the financial scheme. Remember, the hustlers have 2 challenges. One, access to affordable credit. And one of the issues that affect them is having a prior or having a statement to show their character, to show their capacity and what they have done. I've seen people who have borrowed 500 shillings, they are now eligible or able to borrow 50,000 shillings without the benefit of security. Any bank today, if that person walked to any bank, most probably he doesn't have anything else, but he has a hustler fund statement. That statement, we want to socialize the financial system
how
to appreciate.
How does the bank use that? Because what they are legally bound to use is a credit reference report. And remember, you said at the start of the Hustler Fund, you took everyone who was negatively listed,
yes,
you delisted them, and you put them, sort of back in that space.
Yeah.
So my question is, in building a proper credit history for them, wouldn't you then provide this information to the Credit Reference Bureau to start to build a proper credit reference score for them?
There may be tools, because they are borrowing between 500, 1,000 shillings, 2,000, 3,000. And us in the hustler world believe that if one can borrow 500 shillings and repay, he can also borrow 100,000.
Okay. My question, Bwana Waziri, specifically was, is the information from the Hustler Fund being shared with the CRBs for them to start to create a credit history for them?
Yvonne, we haven't reached there. Remember, we are only 18 months. So it's a product that we are developing. But ultimately, we believe we'll have the largest volume information on credit reference. Yes.
18 months into this.
Yes.
Credit Reference Bureau have no visibility of the activity and behavior of these millions of Kenyans who are borrowing. Why haven't you granted them access to this information if, like you say, the function and the purpose of this is to be able to help these people, right?
Yes.
Build a good credit score.
Correct.
Why do the CRBs not have visibility of the actions and behavior of the millions of borrowers who are in the Hustler Fund, so that then you can say you've rehabilitated their credit score?
One, we have not closed anyone out, especially the Credit Reference Bureau. In fact,
you're supposed to provide the information.
We are actually developing a partnership with the Credit Reference Bureau right now. But we needed to build some database so that by the time we engage, now we are approaching 2 years, maybe by November this year, we will have enough information. We have gathered enough.
You don't have enough information now? Because remember, with credit reference, you're supposed to be sharing the information almost real time.
We need to have seen at least 2-3 times. We need to see the borrowers transact 2-3 times.
Okay, but you said 2-3 times.
Yes, I mean.
However, you did say that these ones that you have graduated or rehabilitated have borrowed up to 10 times.
Yes.
So why is that information not available to the CRBs, but you're now saying you need to at least see it 2 to 3 times, but you say they've borrowed over 10 times? Which is it, Waziri?
Yeah, what we have is we have 2 million borrowers who have demonstrated good credit,
which you said have borrowed over 10 times.
Yes.
But then again, you're saying that you're waiting for borrowers to at least borrow 2 to 3 times to provide the information to CRBs. But you say these ones you've rehabilitated have borrowed over 10 times.
We still believe that within the last 2 years, we can still deepen the information from these hustlers. And as I speak to you, we are engaged with those Credit Reference Bureau to develop a scoring tool for them. So it's not whole lost.
What's wrong with the scoring tool that they have?
The scoring tool that they have could be very high because, one, the amounts, the way they structured their scoring is mostly from banks, mostly from the big financial institutions.
Actually, Waziri, they take the scoring from every lending institution. MFIs, SACCOs, digital lenders, banks. True. And digital lenders, as you know, also provide the amounts of money.
And those are conventional. Those are conventional financial institutions. This is a fellow we picked in the village. It's a fellow who had never, ever been to any event center. This is a fellow who we went out, picked with his phone, Mulika Mwizi, dialed 254, and got 500 shillings. And then he went back and borrowed again, progressively built a history. So in the end, because these credit bureaus existed even before us, and they took us to this level. So we are trying to reconfigure the system and see how best we can do. As government, we have a social responsibility to bring back these 8 million hustlers, to mainstream them, to bring them back to financial space so that they can also benefit from what's going on.
Okay, let's talk about the savings now. How much in terms of, there's an accrued saving of 3.1 billion?
Yes.
Where is that money?
The money we save through we have a custodial account, and we are going through, we follow the RBA rules. Currently, we are in touch with KNEST. KNEST is Kenya National, it's a saving for hustlers, and we are in discussion to appoint them as the administrator of the fund, and also working with National Social Security Fund to work with their service providers. So effectively, we have already opened, we've got authorities to open the custodial account for this money so that it is regulated by by RBA. That's where we are.
And some of that money is available to them immediately, and the other is available
long-term. It's a pension. We save every loan that we issue, because we were promoting, other than just loaning or lending, we also promote social security for these hustlers, so that in the end, we are able to also give them a retirement package. So every loan that we issue, we take out 5%, and we divide that saving into two. We have 70% going through for saved for long term as a pension, and 30% is accessible or available to them within 1 year.
The long term,
yeah.
The long term one, where is that money? What does government do with it?
We just put it through the savings, either government bills, government bonds, securities, short-term and secure savings. So we have service providers regulated by RBA.
So it's being invested in bonds?
In bonds and bills, government securities only.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so as this money is being invested in these bonds, it's essentially taxpayers' money, right?
No.
It is taxpayers' money.
These are individuals' money.
No.
Borrowed, yes.
It is tax money. Where does the money they borrowed come from?
It is a grant that comes from government and is expected to be paid back by.
And that grant from government comes from who?
It came from government. It is borrowed by these people. This is a seed money. We believe will roll over at some stage. The fund will be self-sustainable.
Waziri, where does the government get its grant money from for this?
It came from the taxes, yes. Okay. And then through Treasury, we got it as a grant, and we on-lend this money. So it's a development project. That's like a water project in your village. That money came from public, and it was used to develop a water project and as a grant. So this grant came to this hustler fund, and we gave out to these hustlers as a way of promoting financial inclusion and also rehabilitating some of these Kenyans.
All right. As we talk about, you're saying people who perhaps have never had the opportunity to borrow these amounts of money and have borrowed and have paid back. What's the impact of this fund? Can you quantify, for instance, what the people have done with the money in terms of they've borrowed, started a business, employed people, and used that money to generate more income? What's the impact of that? Can you give us some numbers?
The impact can only be gotten through a proper monitoring, evaluation of the impact. But casually, or from where I sit, I've seen people improve their day-to-day business operations. Remember, these are small token funds. So people who are involved in mama mbogas, people who are involved in groceries, they were involved in small, they call it shops, have been able to improve their stock levels. But beyond that also, we've been able to also carry out the savings. So the impact of this is we have seen savings go up by people who may not have had opportunity to save before, and also improve their business activities. But we have just done the first product. That is personal.
Waziri, this is a loan product.
Yes.
How is it that you do not have these numbers
of
people who've been impacted in the ways in which they have? Because you're saying, I have seen some. this is money you're dealing with every day,
Yes.
right? You're disbursing the money, you're bringing it back. You don't have any proper evaluation and monitoring system to be able to give us some proper numbers?
The evaluation is ongoing now, and this is 1.5 years. Evaluation now is going on. We believe by close of September.
What numbers can you give us in the 18 months? Because Waziri, you can give us the number of your customer base. You're telling us about how much you have disbursed, how much you have saved. You surely do not have any numbers on the impact of this in the economy? Because at the end of the day, you've got to be answerable to taxpayers who are the ones who are giving these numbers, right? And so there has to be seen to be value for money when you are accounting back to taxpayers.
If you're talking about a larger economy, the impact is real because the liquidity and funds in circulation across the country has improved.
By what levels, Waziri, has liquidity improved?
Okay, personally, I'm not custodian of this data and statistics, but working together with the other agencies dealing with this, it takes time.
But why aren't you the custodian of these data and statistics? Because the Hustler Fund falls within your ministry, does it not?
No agency in Kenya is custodian of statistics. Other than we have an institution that carries out statistical survey across the government.
And what are they telling you?
That's what they are doing now. And that's what we are working together right now. So I believe by September we should be able to give you feedback when we are close to 2 years. So the first year
Is there no data for the first year?
The first year, no, not yet. What I have was onboarding. Major activity that we did in the first year is to onboard and register these hustlers. And that has happened successfully. So right now, we haven't rolled out our second, third, and the fourth product. So the statistics that is going to come, we will be able to publish by close of September. We should be having a report on the impact of the Hustler Fund.
Okay,
but immediate one is, as I told you, we have rehabilitated hustlers who are listed and were out of the economy. They were out of...
How many of those, you said, who were out of...
8 million, about 8 million.
Okay.
Yes.
And you say you now compete with the private sector because your numbers, how do they compare with those in the private sector?
Which numbers?
Your numbers for onboarding customers, the number of the value of the
I think we have
loans.
the largest number of hustlers. Virtually, as I told you,
when you talk about hustlers,
yes,
who are those in terms of an economic?
A hustler is a hard-working Kenyan who wakes up very early in the morning.
Great.
To mind his business. The 16 million Kenyans who are also hustlers are the people that we focus on.
Okay, so help me understand. You said you've onboarded how many customers? What's your customer base?
There are people who have joined. There are 23
million. Like in
million.
total, yeah.
There are 23,606,764, and those who have borrowed about 18 million.
Okay.
Yes.
And in this regard, you believe you compare better to the private sector? Based on your numbers?
In terms of numbers, yes. I think we could be the largest.
Actually, no. Digital lenders have been able to reach over 28 million borrowers. You're only at 23. So far...
but those combined...
Well, so far, but you say your government, and these are the funds that you're
we are only 1.5 years, Madam Yvonne, and they have been around for over 10 years. We believe, as government, we're not competing, we complement each other. And those 1.5 years, we've been able to achieve this. We believe progressively we'll also be able to attract. Remember, we still have other challenges like the other products and the amounts that we lend to these people, to the hustlers. So progressively, we'll be able to even out, we'll be able to improve, and we'll also increase our customer relationship in terms of our product portfolio, and that will be able to attract and retain more.
If, as you say, at the beginning you said you came in to fix and right a wrong, right? With what was happening in the private sector and them being, I'd heard the word, over the last 18 months, predatory lending tactics in that sense. And so, in a sense, you did come in to compete with the private sector.
No, we came to correct a market failure.
What was that market failure?
If you remember, people are borrowing money at the rate of 1 to 2% per day. That amounts to about 365% in a year, or 700%. From any assessment, no business can sustain that kind of cost. And so our intervention was to correct. And you've seen prices and interest come down in the last 1 year. I've seen that. I've seen billboards in Nairobi and other cities.
Interest of?
Of loans. I've seen banks and financial institutions advertise reduced interest rates. We have recently withdrawn the limits that we had. The central bank limits that were there before were removed. But for us, we are promoting single-digit loans. And we believe by doing that, we'll be able to encourage and shift a focus, or rather interest, from double-digit to single-digit.
But some would say that that is, sort of interfering with the market and posting artificial rates of 8% when lenders in the digital lending space, and perhaps even the banks, are at double-digit rates, and that is largely due to the CBR rate that is set by the CBK. Is this 8% rate artificial?
It's not artificial, because what is the role of government? In any market, government intervenes to protect and also to correct.
Is that the market rate? Do you think that's where lending rates should be, or borrowing rates should be?
We should be there, because with that rate, we can increase consumption of credit. But when we start pricing our loans at 18, I know the Treasury bill rates is now ranging between around 16–15%.
Yeah.
So banks are naturally going to mark up.
So my question,
with another
Waziri,
4%.
is, if you're saying 8% is where we should be,
yes,
and that's the borrowing rate,
yeah,
the same government you work for is going into the market and borrowing at 16%, double the rate. What does then that say about?
But
about the government?
You're forgetting our original objective of setting up the Hustler Fund was to enable as many people to join. So
we're also talking about the market and how it works.
So we must balance between the original objective and the current market cost. So we are still.
So what's the cost of a loan for you, Waziri? Because if you say the cost of a loan should be 8%, your government is borrowing at 16% in the market rate, and that is for long term.
Because we have a different objective through the Hustler Fund.
Yeah. But I'm just asking what your thoughts are around market rates, and whether what some critics say is you trying to manipulate those interest rates and come in with an artificial rate that is way below the market rate. What does it say about a government that lends at this and comes in at this other rate?
Let's put it this way. Let me use again the water project funded by government in the village. Ideally, if you price that water project, it will be too expensive to do. But government does it because it has a social responsibility to give water to those people. Similarly, we have a social responsibility to bring back these Kenyans who have been closed out back to and mainstream them into the financial sector. So sometimes we have to bear some cost and try to encourage first people to join, onboard them, and progressively we can graduate them to mainstream financial institutions. That way, they can now pay the commercial rates that we are prevailing at the moment.
And who bears that cost?
It's still government, because the agency is government. We bear that cost. It's a development budget. It's a development fund. We have now an allocation of 3.5. It's a development fund. And the whole intention is to rehabilitate Kenyans. That is seen as a development program. It's an intervention. It will cost us, but eventually, we believe, imagine 8 million people, if they are successfully rehabilitated and they went to become SMEs and even medium organizations, the impact in the economy will be massive. It's like bringing 8,000 people from our developed economy to Kenya. It will make huge difference. And this is not, we are not reinventing anything. Elsewhere, they've done it the same. You will go to US, you will find SBA, Small Business Administration. You go to India, they are doing the same. These are first world, these are developed economies, but they still have programs to support their young and small enterprises. They believe that is where the economy strength comes from.
And when will we see the impact of that? Or have we already seen it?
No, it is too early to say that we have achieved what we wanted to achieve. Because if we are able to graduate now, we're seeing about 2 million can move forward. But we will give them the second product. We move to the third product. By the time we are crossing to the fourth product, which is the startup, and we are working on the startup bill now it's before Parliament, we can be able to say we have made this impact, because by the time we're doing startup, we are at another level.
But when will we start to see the impact of it? Surely you've done feasibility studies.
You know, these products are being introduced progressively.
Okay.
We cannot say it's
So when
tomorrow.
will we progressively see that? Because surely in 18 months, are you saying there has been...
We have done 2 changes in the last 18 months.
Understood.
Yes.
I'm asking about the impact and when we will see that. You've told us you've seen some people, whose businesses have grown. But when would the economy start to feel the impact of the Hustler Fund? Like in your projections, lending institutions typically do projections over.
By the time we are doing the startup, we believe in our projection was in the 4th year. That is after going through the stages and the steps. So we want to see this fellow borrowing 500 now to progress up to, by the time he's getting to the 4th year, he should be able to now go into a startup business, be able to also make investments from his savings and change the approach we have now. We are doing credit-led savings. And along the way, we will turn it to savings-led credit. And at that time, this hustler can be able to invest, can be able to graduate, and can be able to join the mainstream financial system.
As we come to the close of this, and you've reiterated the purpose and the rationale of launching the Hustler Fund from the beginning, one of which was rehabilitating, those with poor credit scores. At what point then do you think, and this is what some say at this point, is that the idea of borrowing and repaying, and this is, you talked about the terms of repayment for the Hustler Fund, which you said are modest. So it's 8% interest rate, payable within 14 days. You have a rollover interest of 9.5 from the 15 days, from the 15th day. There are no penalties charged. In as much as you're also inculcating the culture of saving, what would you say to those who, term the rather modest terms as inculcating the culture of paying, of borrowing, but not necessarily paying back?
Your question is, you've mixed your question. I didn't get it clearly. That we are promoting... With
your modest terms, some would say that that does not necessarily encourage repayment.
The 15%, the 9.5%. Yeah.
With no penalties charged.
Ideally, it's intended to, it's like a negative sanction for those who go beyond the 14 days term period. But those who pay within the 14 period benefit from a lower interest. So it's a way of incentivizing payment or discipline across the among the borrowers.
Waziri, that's how CRB works. You borrow, you pay, you use that credit score to then negotiate for a lower rate for your next loan. So then what is the difference between what the Credit Reference Bureau have been doing and what you've just explained the Hustler Fund to be doing?
The Credit Reference Bureau scores people who are already in the financial system. we are bringing people from scratch, from the bottom.
Understood,
of the
Waziri. I understand what you've said. However, now these are the ones, yes, and you're transitioning them.
Yes.
And you're transitioning them into the real world.
Yes.
Shall we call it, for lack of a better phrase.
Yeah.
In a real world where a lender wants to be able to say that you have borrowed this amount, you have paid it back, therefore you can use that score, which is exactly what you've said, right? They borrow at 8%, repay within 14 days, and therefore their subsequent loan, they can then get at a perhaps more favorable rate?
Correct. In fact, the group loan is much lower, is 7.5.
All right. The CRB does the listing in the exact same way, which is you have borrowed, Waziri, you have paid back within the stipulated time.
Yes.
Therefore, you look like you are a good person to lend money to. You are creditworthy. And therefore, that credit score that you have, let's say for argument's sake, is between 1 to 10, with 1 being the best. You have a 2. You take that credit score for your next lending to get a more favorable rate.
Correct.
So what was the issue with CRBs? Because you seem to be speaking the same language.
No, we haven't condemned CRBs at all, Yvonne. We actually want to bring up this fellow and progressively build up a credit-worthy borrower and eventually transition that person to the mainstream financial system and now can interact with CRBs and others. So we are not in competition with CRBs. In fact, we want them to know. We also inculcate financial literacy along the way so that when we transition them, they can be able to onboard or join the mainstream financial system and with all the activities, including the CRBs, the borrowing, they have known how to save, they have known how to balance their books, they have known how to keep records and financial.
But you said you're not condemning them, but even at the start of this interview, you've talked about the negative sanctioning. There was a lot that was said about CRBs and the manner in which they do it. Fine, to your point that you are bringing people on board who, had never borrowed and therefore were never listed. But then now, the exact same thing that you're doing with these 2 million who you say you have rehabilitated is exactly what the CRBs are doing. So what was this trying to achieve, or what problem was it trying to cure?
I think
if in fact you even said you want to create a listing that the people can then use to go and...
I think...
but then it would seem then you are competing with the CRBs.
No, we are not, because...
Why would you issue your own credit listing when legally registered CRBs are there to do exact same thing?
Yes, because how others have done it and how we've done it. One, you remember people calling, if one of your sisters or brothers borrowed by any chance through those lenders, you remember every member of your family would know, and every member would receive calls, and they will be threatened.
But that is nothing to do with CRB.
It is still about...
No. That has to do, Waziri, with the lenders and their predatory activities, which the Central Bank of Kenya, under which now the digital lenders fall, is now doing the work of monitoring them, in fact, providing them with licenses. So perhaps you're mixing issues.
No, I'm going there. I was just giving you the background, that is what used to happen. And all that will be forwarded to Credit Reference Bureau, locking out this number of people that I've given to you. Now, when we came through the Hustler Fund, first we relaxed the rate. Part of the reason why people defaulted was the cost of borrowing. We relaxed the rate, and you've seen the number of people who have joined. Second is we've been also incorporating financial literature training and also promoting good character, and even also introducing the saving, because saving is also a positive social safety net. Because when you have savings, you tend to be look forward, because you have something that you've saved. So this person will tend to be to live within, and is also, it improves their integrity, because they know if they default, they lose this. So progressively we are bringing a wholesome a whole-rounded person. Okay. That is not the case elsewhere.
Right.
But Credit Reference Bureau we're not condemning. We complement each other. And these are going to be partners because, as I told you before, we are in discussions with some of them to develop a tool to support those people without necessarily pressing them down. Remember, we don't have securities. On the other mainstream banks, they take collateral securities and whatever. We don't have any security ourselves. We give them we trusted them as Kenya. We gave everybody a flat figure, and then progressively we grew their levels, their limits, and some have done very well. Even those who started with very little money, as little as 500, now they have achieved. They are doing about 50,000. I know of one fellow in Mombasa who has been able to borrow 694 times. They have grown from 500 to 50,000, the maximum limit in this product design.
Okay. You said it came in to fix the cost of borrowing.
Fix the not.
That's what you said, at the start of the response to this.
We said the cost of borrowing. We cannot.
That's why you're providing it at a.
We are giving a single-digit interest rate.
Why is that?
Because it's easier and affordable to these hustlers. If we went the normal market rates, we possibly will encourage non-repayment.
Okay.
And secondly, we
and
will
so
also...
on the market rates, what's the challenge with the market rates? And how do you think giving it at a subsidized rate and then at some point allowing them back into that market rate is helpful? What's the problem with the market rate right now?
This is an incubation period. This is a mentorship level. And then we then accelerate them progressively to join the market rates. So we believe at some stage when they have built enough financial knowledge, financial literacy, financial capacity, they can join the mainstream.
But how does it help them to borrow at 8% and then go into the market and find rates that are more than double that?
By that time, they will have built enough muscle.
What do you mean?
Yes, by the time someone is borrowing 50, 100,000, he will have built enough financial muscle. He can afford, he can do bigger business, his activities. This person borrowing 500 shillings most likely is doing one debe of potatoes and wants to sell that and make a living. And every shilling in that sale, in that trade, counts. But this person handling and transacting 100,000 a day, for example, is already in big volume of business, so he can afford at least to pay to pay that market interest, at the same time make a living out of that business. So this is just to support the hustlers, and we limit ourselves to 50,000 for now. Anything beyond, we graduate them to other financial institutions. So, and we go back to bring another hustler.
Okay. My final question to you is, and based on all of the issues that have come up regarding the management of this, what would you say to some who are now very doubtful of how the Hustler Fund is being managed? What with the reports that we have seen about people who come in and borrow time and time again, some borrowing more than they're able to. There is now a perception, Waziri, that the Hustler Fund is not really managed professionally, and that there is, the relationship between the borrower and the lender is compromised. When you have some who are borrowing and getting it, it sounds like you need to know somebody, which then raises the questions of the professional management of this, including with that secretariat that you've talked about.
Thank you, Yvonne, for that question, and I am really happy to answer that question. Number one, this product rides on digital platforms of established institutions. We have the telcos and we have the banks. So there is no human intervention at all. We just fund the wallet. So there is no engagement or interaction with anybody in between. All the systems and designs have been onboarded and working with the big players in this field, in the banking and in the telcos. So you just need your phone, You dial *254. It will take you through a protocol. One of the protocol is your ID. You cannot progress without your ID number because this product is limited to Kenyans and also for identification. The second issue is the mobile number. All the 3 mobile networks in Kenya have registered SIM card of members. So again, this limits. So there is no way at all you will be able to lose or rather interact with anybody. Now, the issues that were raised by the Auditor General were done at that time when we had not synchronized these mobile networks. That time, we had borrowings through the 3 mobile networks, and there were possibilities of one borrowing twice using different mobile networks. But when we brought in the ID as a common identifier, we closed out. So if you came in with a mobile with an Airtel number, and then you went and borrowed again using a Safaricom number, the system will just detect that you've already borrowed, and it will not allow you to proceed, because we have a common lending point. We have the lending is done at one point, so it will query. That query is sent to that common pool, and it will advise. So this issue was raised. We were able to respond. We told the Auditor General, but we were time-barred because she had to file this report with the National Assembly. That time, we were only 5 months old. So I admit we were time-barred in submitting our report. But we have since then corrected, responded. The report, even the answers to these queries were submitted to the Auditor General. We were late by 1 week. So the report that we are dealing with now has all been addressed, and no funds. And I can look I can face Kenyans and assure them that all the money in the Hustler Fund can be traced to the cent.
And the Secretariat?
We have established a Secretariat. We now have a team of about 12 staff sent to that Secretariat to just support the service providers. It is a perfect relationship between public and private. So we contribute the money through the Exchequer allocates us funds. We create wallets, and we allow the distribution and application by the borrowers through this private sector infrastructure. We have invested 0 cents on this system.
Thank you very much, Waziri. We thank you for coming and making some time to explain the issues around the Hustler Fund. We look forward to hearing more.